This video has been censored according to YouTube's guidelines. You can find the uncensored version on Patreon or Spotify. Link is in the description below. Tuesday, 22nd of May, 2022, Uvalde, Texas. At 11:10 a.m., an argument between Salvador Ramos, an 18-year-old former student of the Robb Elementary School, and his 66-year-old grandmother led to Salvador shooting his grandmother in the face with a firearm. Immediately after, Salvador would flee the household and steal his grandmother's car, a black 2008 Ford F-150. While Salvador left for the Robb Elementary School in the stolen car, the grandmother, who through miraculous luck had survived the gunshot trauma to the head, sought help from her neighbors. Through the quick thinking and response of the people living next door and the competence of the medical emergency service, the grandmother was hastily airlifted to a hospital in San Antonio in critical condition and ultimately survived her wounds. However, this sense of urgency would be sorely missed in the events that followed after. 11:28 a.m. A security camera at Hillcrest Memorial Funeral Home catches Salvador Ramos crashing his grandmother's Ford into a ditch outside of Robb Elementary School. Possessing no driver's license, the 18-year-old lost control of the vehicle as he attempted to turn down the road leading towards the school. A teacher standing on the outside of the Western School entrance sees the incident and runs inside to retrieve her phone. As two bystanders from the funeral home approach to help, Ramos opens fire on them with an rifle, forcing the two bystanders into retreat. None of them are wounded in the process. Concurrently, the police receive a 911 call reporting that a vehicle has just crashed outside of Robb Elementary School. Carrying one of the two rifles he brought along, a DDM-4V7, as well as a tactical vest lacking armor panels but containing 7 30-round magazines, Ramos casually abandons the vehicle in the ditch and proceeds to walk towards Robb Elementary School at a slow pace. The teacher, wanting to report the car crash, already on the phone with 911, reports the gun-wielding suspect before retreating back into the building through the west-facing entrance, trying to close the door in the process. Unfortunately, though the door closes, the door fails to lock behind her, leaving the way of entry for Ramos completely open. Ramos begins to fire upon the school from the parking lot, with several bullets penetrating the classroom windows. Moments later, a school resource police officer, hearing about the 911 call detailing the shots fired and a potential active shooter on site, drives right past Ramos, who's currently concealed between the parked cars. The officer erroneously pursues the teacher instead, who he thought to be the active shooter, while Ramos continues to fire off rounds towards the classroom from the parking lot. At 11:33 a.m., Ramos enters the Robb Elementary School, while a frantic caller contacts the emergency dispatch.
He's inside the school shooting at the kids!
Through the school hallway, Ramos proceeds down the corridors, where he heads towards the interconnected classrooms 111 and 112. Inside are two classes of 4th grade children, accompanied by their 3 teachers. As Ramos approaches the classroom, he sees through the window and the door the teacher Umar Garcia attempting to close it. Ramos interrupts her attempts and backs her into the classroom at gunpoint. He utters the word, "Good night," before Umar shot on the spot by a volley of fire. Without hesitation, Ramos opens fire on the rest of the 4th graders, as well as the other teachers. For the next 2.5 minutes, Ramos continues to unload his firearm upon the helpless victims, firing off well over 90 rounds of ammunition in this short time span. At 11:35 a.m., armed officers of the Uvalde Police Department arrive on scene. Following the sound of rampant gunfire within the conjoined classrooms, they quickly determine the shooter's location and proceed accordingly. As they take control of the hallway and set up positions outside of classroom 111 and 112, Ramos opens fire upon them, grazing 2 of the officers in the process. Both of the police officers make the collective decision to retreat from the classroom, and take up positions at the end of the hallway instead. At 11:37 a.m., Officer Ruben Ruiz, residing at the end of the hallway as well, is contacted on his phone. It is his wife, Eva Morales, one of the 3 teachers within the classrooms. She tells Ruiz that the shooter is within her class, that she's shot, and that she's dying. Visibly shaking, Ruiz remarks, "My wife is shot. She's hurt." At 11:38 a.m., Lieutenant Javier Martinez approaches the classrooms and attempts to establish verbal contact with Ramos in both English and Spanish. No verbal communication is reciprocated. Seconds later, a shot rings out from inside the class, and Martinez retreats to the end of the corridor once again. Officer Eduardo Canales remarks that we gotta get in there. He's just gonna keep shooting.
Dude, we gotta get in there. We gotta get in there. He just keeps shooting. We gotta get in there.
2 minutes later, at 11:40 a.m., Pedro Arredondo, the police chief of the Uvalde Police Department, calls the Uvalde Police Department dispatch through a landline on site. According to his own testimony, he arrived on site thinking he was the first responding officer and rushed into the school without bringing his police and campus radio, as he claimed the radios often didn't work on the school grounds, but also deemed that they would hinder his movement and eventually obstruct his ability to handle his firearm. This means that the most crucial on-site position in terms of leadership, unit coordination, cross-communication, and decision-making, the very most essential operational role for gathering information, relaying crucial knowledge, and deciding on the proper approach based on all of these factors, has no way of performing his expected duties to even the minimum of capacity. As stated by retired Navy SEAL Commander John Gretton, also known as Jocko Willink.
This is not even a remotely squared away concept in any way.
What, the radio
going
slowing
in,
you down?
A, the radio slowing you down. B, both hands on your gun. I mean, you don't carry your radio in your hand while you're shooting. Going into a situation like this, communication during an event like this is beyond critical, especially if you're the chief. I would grab my radio before, if I was in charge, I'd grab my radio before I grab my weapon. How you like that? And I would love to pull the thread on this. My guess is the chief didn't look in his car, see his radio and go, you know what, I'm gonna leave my radio here. My guess is that's not what happened. That might be what the lawyer's saying. That might be a post-operation rationalization. My guess is in the panic of the situation, he didn't think about it and forgot it. And by the way, this points to an equally insane lack of training.
Instead of using a radio, Arredondo calls the Uvalde Police Department through a landline on site and later a cell phone, both incomprehensibly inefficient methods of relaying and receiving information when coordinating efforts through multiple instances and elements. While situated in the south side of the hallway, opposite of the fish lens camera, Arredondo states to dispatch that they have located the shooter, determined what weapon he's carrying, and states that they don't have enough firepower to engage the suspect, even though as many as 7 police officers are already on scene, armed and ready to act. As he surveys the empty rooms around him, he notes that it's award day, an annual occasion where the accomplishments of students are celebrated elsewhere, and therefore, barely any children are present. At the same time, he assumes that the rest of the school has already been evacuated. This changes Arredondo's approach from an active shooter to a barricaded suspect, an approach that would turn out to be a fatal mistake. Arredondo requests backup and that the school be surrounded, while also asking for a radio, as well as a rifle, and the insertion of a SWAT team to be placed on the south side of the building, while Arredondo himself attempts to set up the suspect. At 11:41 a.m., a UPD officer who's on the line with a dispatcher states that they believe the suspect is barricaded in one of the offices and that he's still shooting. When dispatch asks if the door to the classroom is locked, the UPD officer replies, "I'm not sure, but we have a Halligan to break it," referring to a tool often used by emergency responders to gain forcible entry. A total of 11 minutes then proceeds to pass, and in that time span, a teacher allegedly texts a relative informing them of the active shooter, while the school announces their lockdown on Facebook. However, the reason given is due to gunshots in the area, even though more than 100 rounds have been fired within the school already, while simultaneously adding to the statement that the students and staff are safe within the buildings. All the while, as the officers hold their position within the hallway just outside the classroom, present students are evacuated from other parts of the school. At 11:52 a.m., an armed officer of the Uvalde Sheriff's Department arrives on site, bringing with him a ballistic shield. However, it is utilized defensively at the end of the hallway, with no advances made towards the shooter within classroom 111 and 112. The officers continue to hold their positions. Simultaneously, around the school's perimeter, a crowd of both relatives and onlookers has started to gather. Growing restless with the inactions of the police department, they demand that measures be taken and that the shooter be neutralized. At 11:56 a.m., Officer Ruiz once again remarks that his wife is shot. He is escorted off-site by Lieutenant Mariano Pargas, and his gun is taken away. At 11:58 a.m., it is alleged that a special agent from the Department of Public Safety is heard saying, "If there's kids in there, we need to go in there," to which another officer replies, "Whoever is in charge will determine that." A federal agent of the U.S. Border Patrol suggests using CS gas, also known as tear gas, to flush out the suspect.
Still have CS? CS gas?
However, the suggestion is neither approved nor rejected. Another DPS agent indicates that he wants to take action and start clearing the classrooms, to which an officer inquires, "Don't you think we should have a supervisor approve that?" To which the DPS agent replies, "He's not my supervisor." At 12:03 p.m., a 4th grade student by the name of Khloie Torres dials. Through careful whispers, she identifies both herself, the classroom she resides in, and asks for the police to come and help her. The call lasts 1 minute and 23 seconds before she hangs up. Outside of the classroom, at least 19 armed officers reside, holding their positions at the end of both hallways. However, no one enters the classroom. This is because the crucial detail of a child calling from within the classroom can't be relayed to the incident commander, Arredondo, as he showed up on scene without his radio. However, more disturbingly is the fact that when other officers with radios receive the same information, no one urges to change the current method of approach. According to his own testimony, due to the lack of visual evidence, Arredondo was unsure of how many, if any children at all, were trapped within the classroom. He was, however, certain that the suspect was now cornered. Arredondo's concern was instead evacuating the rest of the school, eliminating the potential increase in the number of innocent casualties, rather than neutralizing the active gunmen. However, though this goes directly against protocols established since the shooting in 1999, and even though his understanding of the situation would gradually change as the information of both dead, wounded, and children still alive within the classroom came to surface, no change in approach would be implemented by the police chief. At 12:04 p.m., a second and third ballistic shield arrived through the western entry to the school, now making it a total of 3. Still, no action is taken. 6 minutes pass. Once again, Khloie Torres calls from within the classroom.
I'm in classroom. What's the classroom number? 1012. 112. 112. 112, yes, ma'am.
What's your name, ma'am?
Khloie Torres, please hurry. There's a lot of...
Arredondo then requests a master key to the classroom, stating that they can't get in because the door is locked. Though this hasn't been determined at any point, and though SWAT has already arrived on scene and several methods of breaching are available, finding this key becomes Arredondo's primary focus for the remainder of the crisis. At no point during the entire incident is neither the principal nor the custodian, both of which possess Masterkeys, contacted by law enforcement officers. 12:13 p.m. Khloie Torres once again dials. This time, the information is relayed from the dispatcher to officers on site. Lieutenant Mariano Pargas is told by an officer on scene that a child just called saying the room is full of victims.
The room is full of victims. Child victims. Child.
Another 3 minutes pass. For the fourth time, at 12:16 p.m., having now waited more than 10 minutes since her first call and more than 40 since the initial beginning of the shooting, stuck in a classroom with her wounded and classmates among her, and the shooter still at large, with officers only a few feet away from her, Khloie Torres dials again. She states that 8 or 9 of them are still alive within the classroom and is asking for help. This information somehow fails to be relayed among the officers on scene. Meanwhile, Arredondo is seen on camera testing multiple keys on a door next to him. He remarks that none of them are able to open it, indicating the lack of a master key. Lieutenant Mariano Pargas then calls dispatch himself and gets confirmation that dispatch is indeed in contact with a child inside the classroom, that 8 or 9 children are still alive, and that multiple are dead. Pargas then hangs up the call from dispatch and erroneously relays to the other officers on site that there are 9 injured within the classroom, failing to mention that the call came from within the classroom and that the girl was in need of immediate assistance. Many officers on site would later testify that they were never made aware that a call was made from within the class. At 12:19 p.m., another call is made by another student within the classroom, though they hang up immediately when told to by another student. A minute later, despite having the knowledge that several children are in dire need of help, Lieutenant Mariano Pargas leaves the scene to conduct a phone call. He would in his later testimony state that he didn't believe himself to be in charge on the scene, but rather there to support the school police. The crowd of onlookers are growing ever more impatient with the lack of action from the police officers, once again begging them to take measures against the shooter. At 12:21 p.m., Ramos fires a shot at the classroom door, forcing the officers in the south hallway to reposition. 2 minutes later, Arredondo is heard saying, "We've lost 2 kids. If you start shooting, we're going to lose more kids."
That's what I'm saying. You're right.
Indicating his lack of insight in the current situation, crucial information is not being relayed between the officers on site. He then attempts to contact Ramos in both English and Spanish through the thin walls, and though muffled responses can be heard from within the classroom, no dialogue is established. At 12:27 p.m., Arredondo states on body camera, "People are going to ask why we're taking so long."
Chief, that room's clear. Chief, that room's clear.
Yet still, no action is taken. At 12:30 p.m., Arredondo establishes that everything has been cleared out. The school is now completely evacuated, except for the classroom that Ramos is holding hostage. He says that they're ready to breach the door. However, it's locked and they don't have a key to open it. Anticipating a breach of the classroom, numerous officers move closer to room 111 and 112, ready to take action. However, the breach doesn't materialize. Once again, the search for a key to the classroom continues. 12:34 p.m., an on-scene officer asks, "We don't know if he has anyone in the classroom with him, do we?" To which Arredondo replies, "I think he does. There's probably some casualties."
Sure. No, I know. Yeah, he does. Casualties.
Further emphasizing the substantial breakdown in communication between the units on site, dispatch, and the officers in charge. Acting commander for the Border Patrol Tactical Unit, Paul Guerrero, enters the school carrying a Halligan. However, as he attempts to pry open another door in the hallway, he determines that using a breaching tool would take too long and expose the officer using it to gunfire from within the classroom. He also decides to investigate the possibility of a master key. At 12:36 p.m., for the 5th time, Khloie Torres, still trapped within the classroom, calls. She's instructed to stay on the line and keep quiet. It has now been 33 minutes since the first time she dialed. Once again, Arredondo attempts to communicate with Ramos, though this attempt also fails.
Please put your firearm down.
Arredondo states that they need to get into the classroom, but can't because the door is locked. It is, however, important to emphasize that this is pure speculation on Arredondo's part. 12:43 p.m. Yet another student within the classroom dials asking the operator to send the police. 12:45 p.m. Border Patrol Unit Commander Paul Guerrero successfully locates 2 Masterkeys among the officers to the classroom. As the first key fails to open a random door during a test, the second one is utilized instead, proving successful in opening the doors at the school. This will be the key used to open the door to classroom 111, though it would turn out the door was never locked. Later testimony from the director of the Department of Public Safety, Steve McCraw, would reveal that the classroom doors within the school could not be locked from the inside, giving clear indications that the door would have been open since the beginning of the incident.
This is room 127 and 126. That's what 111, this 112 and 111 would look like in that regard. And here's the door. You cannot lock this door from the inside of the classroom.
So the teacher could not even lock the classroom door from the inside?
That's correct. There's no way to lock the door from the inside, and there's no way for the subject to lock the door from the inside.
Finally, at 12:46 p.m., after more than 70 minutes of inaction, the order finally comes down from Arredondo, allowing the officers to breach the classroom. He would, however, in later testimony, underline that he did not make the final call for the Border Patrol Tactical Unit to breach the classroom. The student on the phone with the dispatch says that they can hear the police and are begging them to come and help. At 12:50 p.m., officers from the Border Patrol Tactical Team enters classroom 111. They find Ramos standing in the corner of the room in front of a closet. As Ramos opens fire on the stack of officers breaching the classroom, they return fire. Ramos is shot immediately. The conflict that has claimed the lives of 21 innocent, as well as the gunman, and wounded an additional 18, most of them children, finally comes to an end. The public outcry to the response and decision-making of the Uvalde Police Department following the incident at the Robb Elementary School would be fierce and relentless, deemed as shameful, cowardly, and showing a severe lack of character. The parents and the public held nothing back in terms of underlining the dishonor the distinct failure to act had brought upon the Uvalde Police Department.
How do you live with yourself?
Investigations into the leadership of several high-ranking police officers were brought into question by a multitude of government entities. Subsequently, as the investigations concluded, they determined that some of the children might have survived the wounds had the police acted with more urgency. This estimate was done on the simple basis that several of the children died in the ambulances while being transported to the hospitals. Lieutenant Mariano Pargas decided to voluntarily step down from his position only a few days before his city leaders would decide on the outcome of his indecision. Several officers were fired, and the Uvalde School District decided to suspend its entire police department for an extended period of time. Pete Arredondo was discharged from his position as district police chief. However, Arredondo would in a statement to the public defend his actions, first of all claiming that he never considered himself as the incident commander on site, and furthermore asserted that his decision-making on the day of the shooting had saved lives. Arredondo underlined that he thought his firing was nothing but a public lynching. The Texas House Investigative Committee concluded in its 77-page investigation that the entire incident proved to be a systemic failure and egregious poor decision-making by almost every officer in a position of leadership.
Is there an apology to be made on behalf of law enforcement?
I'd be glad to apologize to the families on behalf of law enforcement because, as I've testified before, it was an abject failure. It violated all the principles that we've learned so much over the years. And, since post-1999, it's always been, okay, with great urgency, you must locate, isolate, and neutralize. And that's an important part. Not just locate and contain, but locate, isolate, and neutralize. Because it's not just in terms of stopping the killing. You've got to stop the killing. You also have to stop the and the only way to do that is neutralize the subject, plain and simple, especially if there's children, okay, where the subject is located at, and there's teachers that have been shot or could have been shot or could be shot.
Hey everyone, Hazmat here. This one was a tough one to get through. Considering the sensitive nature of the topic, I wasn't sure whether to release the video or not. However, due to the obscene lack of action from the law enforcement, I felt it was necessary to shed light on the incident as the timeline unfolded. The next couple of videos will be dark and possibly disturbing, but probably not as grueling in their impact, seeing that they aren't so close to the present. With that said, I'd like to thank the members of the Hunters Lounge for supporting the creation of this video, specifically the exclusive, Johnny Sevens, the VIPs, Corvo Bearslayer, Derivative, Doug Powell, Gino Lucero, Goose, Hambone, Jiminel Bob, Corey Peterson, Lion, Slip, Stas Piestek, Sunrise Phoenix, and the Wizard of Copper, and of course, all the regulars as well. A big thanks to each and every one of you for your continued support. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.